welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're tackling a really make-or-break moment for any new product, the launch phase.
Absolutely. That's where all the hard work hits the market.
Yeah, exactly. We've got some sharp insights pulled from a chapter focused entirely on this, well, crucial part of product management. Our mission here is to equip you, our listener, with a solid yet efficient understanding of what separates the product launches that really take off from the ones that just don't.
Think of it as your express route.
Right, your express route to being well-informed on this pivotal business topic without getting bogged down in, information overload.
Absolutely. And the launch is where the product, after all that development effort, finally faces its ultimate test. The market. It's definitely a high-stakes environment.
High stakes is right. Even small missteps can have big consequences, can't they?
They really can. But getting it right, that can set you up for long-term success.
Okay, so let's get right into it then. Why do we see so many product launches stumble? Our source material flags a few common reasons.
Well, yeah, we often see failures starting with overly optimistic forecasts, estimates that just don't match up with what the market will actually bear.
Okay, so reality checks are needed. What else?
Another big one is underestimating or sometimes completely missing what the competition will do. A new product can really shake things up and make rivals react fast.
Ah, the competitive response.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that.
Then there's the classic problem of spreading resources too thin, trying to do too much, maybe across too many initiatives, and it just dilutes the launch impact.
Right, not enough focus.
Exactly. And of course, sometimes the market itself just shifts under your feet. Unexpected changes happen, and suddenly your initial assumptions are, well, invalid.
So it sounds like a mix of external factors like the market and competitors, but also some internal things like planning and resource allocation.
Precisely. And it's really vital to remember that a successful launch doesn't just happen in isolation,
What do you mean?
It's really the culmination of strategic and tactical decisions made much earlier, especially back in the conceive phase. If that initial groundwork isn't solid, the launch is already fighting an uphill battle.
So it's not just about a flashy launch day event. It's built on everything that came before.
That's it. But even with the best plans, like you said, it's not a guaranteed win, is it?
No, sounds like it needs everyone, the whole team, pulling in the same direction.
Exactly. And a huge piece of that planning, a real cornerstone, is understanding the type of market you're actually entering.
Ah, market type.
Yeah. What's fascinating is how the best launch strategy, the budget, the resources you need, it all changes significantly depending on whether you're going into an existing market, trying to create a totally new one, or maybe carving out a specific niche.
Okay, let's unpack those.
Yeah.
Starting with an existing market, what's the game plan there? The source called it pretty intense, I think.
It did. It described it as a full frontal assault. Basically, you throw everything at it.
Everything,
Leveraging every demand generation channel you have. Think big ad campaigns, lots of PR, a strong presence at trade shows, maybe even direct mail.
wow, okay. Why such an aggressive approach?
Well, the thinking is, in an established market, people already know about this type of product and competitors are already there. So to get noticed and grab share, you have to make a really big splash right away, aggressively capture that market share.
That sounds expensive. Requires a pretty hefty upfront investment, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. It demands a significant upfront budget and, like
Yeah.
you said, a coordinated push from the whole company to get maximum visibility. You need to justify that cost of entry.
Right, okay. That makes sense for established territory. Now, how does that compare to launching into a completely new market, where maybe customers don't even know they need this thing yet?
Yeah, the strategy just flips completely. In a new market, that full frontal assault can be really wasteful
Why is that?
because the market isn't educated yet. They don't understand the problem you solve, let alone your solution. So the source suggests a much more targeted, often lower cost approach.
Lower cost, okay. How?
Heavy emphasis on online marketing, social media. The main goal isn't immediate sales dominance, it's market education.
So teaching people first.
Exactly. Establishing thought leadership, clearly explaining the problem your product solves, showing its value. It's a longer game.
So less hard sell, more building understanding and trust over time. But, you still need sales eventually, right?
Yeah.
How do you balance educating the market with actually starting to sell the thing?
Good question. Yeah, the recommended approach involves a parallel investment. You do the education, but you also invest in tactical demand generation activities to start building that initial sales momentum.
Okay, so a two-pronged approach.
Kind of. The ultimate goal is to reach a sort of demand tipping point where awareness and acceptance start to grow more organically.
Interesting. Okay, and then there's the third type, the resegmented market, targeting a niche within an existing market. How does that work?
That one's a bit more nuanced. The best strategy depends on a few things, like how well-defined that niche is, how mature it is, and crucially, how easily those niche customers can see why your product is different and better for them.
So it depends on the niche itself.
Pretty much. If it's a really new, kind of immature niche, the advice is basically treat it like a new market launch. Focus on education, establishing the specific need.
Okay, and if the niche is more developed?
If it's more mature, where customers get their specific needs and can see how your product fits, then you might consider a more focused version of that full frontal assault, but aimed squarely at that identifiable segment.
Got it. So tailoring the intensity based on niche maturity. But it really sounds like across all these market types, there's one thing that's absolutely fundamental. The source called Upfront Market Study, the single most important consideration for success. Why so critical?
Well, think about it. Without really understanding the market, who the customers are, what they need, who the competition is, what the landscape looks like, your whole launch plan is basically built on sand, no matter how well you execute it.
So it's a foundation for everything else.
Absolutely. That upfront research informs everything. Your target audience, their pain points, how you position your product, the messages you use, all your strategic and tactical choices later on. It just dramatically increases your odds of actually aligning your product with what the market wants.
Okay, that makes total sense. So we've looked at why launches might fail and the huge importance of understanding the market. Now, let's dig into the actual doing of the launch, the execution. Our material mentions a pretty stark statistic, less than 50% success rate. That really highlights the risk.
It does, doesn't it? And that statistic really underscores why you have to actively work to mitigate execution risks across all the different moving parts.
Moving parts.
Yeah. The source helpfully breaks down the activities into two main groups. The launch activities, which is mostly pre-launch prep, and then the post-launch activities.
Okay, let's tackle the launch group first. All that stuff that needs to happen before the product actually goes public. Collaboration seems to be step one.
Yes, definitely. It really starts with getting the product and marketing teams tightly aligned, defining that core product story, the key positioning messages.
Getting the story straight.
Exactly. And then that expands outward, becomes a broad, cross-functional effort to ensure total market readiness.
What does that involve, practically?
Oh, lots of things. Creating all the customer and market-facing materials, brochures, website content, data sheets, updating the website messaging itself, proactively briefing industry analysts and maybe key early customers, getting PR ready to go, developing compelling demo tools, even sorting out things like SEO for the new product pages.
Wow, okay. It's about creating that unified story and then making sure all the pieces are actually in place to tell it everywhere.
You got it. And then there's the crucial step, getting the sales teams and any channel partners up to speed.
Sales enablement. Super important.
Absolutely vital. Your sales teams, your partners, they need comprehensive training. They need to understand the positioning, the value proposition, how it solves customer problems, and they need the tools to get out the final marketing collateral, the selling guides, to go out and sell it confidently.
Yeah, because even the world's best product won't sell itself, right?
Yeah.
You need people who know how to talk about it effectively.
Precisely. And it's not just sales, is it? You mentioned other teams, operations, customer support. They need to be in the loop too.
Right. They're customer-facing as well.
Exactly. All those teams need the detailed product info, the established processes, so the customer experience is smooth right from day one. This also loops back to making sure manufacturing is ready to meet that initial demand, that the product can actually be delivered efficiently.
So after all that prep, then comes the official launch.
Yes. After all that pre-launch work, the official market launch is when the product becomes available. And you have those defined selling, delivery, and support processes ready to go.
It sounds like a massive coordination effort, a real orchestra of different teams and tasks. What are the absolute must-haves for pulling this off? What really makes the difference, according to the source?
Yeah, the source points to a few key enablers, things that are almost always there in successful launches.
Okay, like what?
First, strong support from the top, executive leadership buy-in, and crucially, a dedicated budget. Without those, it's hard to get the resources and organizational focus needed.
Makes sense. Leadership and money. What else?
A core cross-functional team. You need committed people from product management, marketing, ops, manufacturing, customer service, sales, all working together.
A launch team.
Right. And ideally, product marketing takes the lead, kind of coordinating all those different efforts. And for really complex launches, maybe involving multiple products or regions, bringing in a dedicated project manager can be incredibly valuable, just to keep all the trains running on time.
Yeah, a project manager for the really big ones.
Yeah.
Okay, those enablers make sense. Leadership, budget, team, coordination. Now, let's drill down into some of those specific pre-launch elements. Positioning and messaging. That seems like the absolute foundation of how people will even think about the product.
Oh, completely foundational. Positioning is all about defining that specific space in the market you want to own in the customer's mind. How do you want them to see your product compared to the alternatives?
Okay, staking your claim.
Exactly. And tied right into that is your value proposition. This needs to be a really concise, compelling statement, like 1 to 3 sentences explaining the unique benefits and why a customer should choose you.
The core reason to buy.
Precisely. And then you build on that with your key messages, usually 3 to 5 points that kind of amplify and support the value proposition with more detail, with evidence, facts, figures, whatever backs it up.
And I remember the source mentioning a one-page product story. Is that just putting all this together?
Pretty much, yeah. It's super valuable. Having that single page with your positioning, your value prop, your key messages, it acts as a reference point, a source of truth.
Why is that so important?
It ensures consistency. Everyone involved, marketing, sales, support, even internal teams, is telling the same compelling story about the product across all channels, website, ads, sales pitches, everywhere. You absolutely have to invest in the advertising and the materials that really hammer home that value proposition clearly and persuasively.
Right. Consistency is key. And it's not just about broadcasting your message directly to customers, is it? Getting other influential people excited seems important too.
Oh, hugely important. Identifying those key influencers, maybe industry analysts, respected bloggers, thought leaders in your space, and building relationships with them, that can massively boost your credibility and reach.
So how do you get them on board?
You need to brief them effectively. Develop a concise briefing deck, something that clearly lays out the value proposition, what makes your product different, why it matters. Engage them, show them the value, and hopefully turn them into advocates.
Okay, clear messages, get influencers buzzing. What about the tangible stuff, the actual marketing materials that sales teams use and customers see?
Yeah, the source really emphasizes how much sales teams rely on professional materials to actually, drive business. It's critical to plan this out.
Plan what specifically?
Ensure that those core product messages flow consistently from the very beginning, like engineering specs, all the way through to user guides, brochures, white papers, website copy. Everything needs to align.
Avoid mixed messages.
Exactly. You need a system, really, for managing that information flow, breaking down the silos between, say, engineering and marketing. Good, consistent materials reinforce your key points and make everyone feel much more ready for the market. They build confidence.
And there's quite a range of these materials, isn't there? It's not just one brochure.
Oh, no, definitely not. A good launch usually needs a whole suite of collateral, each piece doing a specific job.
Can you give some examples?
Sure. You've got your basic product brochures or sell sheets, hitting the highlights, the unique aspects, the core reasons to buy. Then maybe product fact sheets, more detailed specs, features, functions for those who want the nitty-gritty.
Okay.
Press releases for any major news. For B2B or maybe more expensive consumer products, an ROI calculator can be really powerful, showing the tangible value.
Proving the return. Nice.
White papers are great for more in-depth educational content. They support the value prop, maybe tackle competitive issues head-on. And of course, the website is crucial, a central hub. Plus, things like product demos or videos to actually show the product, and maybe even competitive comparison guides.
Right, showing how you stack up. So it's a whole ecosystem of content, really.
Yeah.
Designed to inform and persuade at different levels.
Exactly.
And we touched on sales readiness training and tools. What about the operational and support side in more detail, getting the rest of the company ready?
Yeah, that's about making sure all the behind-the-scenes machinery is humming, all the systems, the processes needed to actually deliver and support the product once it's out there.
What kind of machinery?
Integrating new procedures for things like operations, quality control, logistics, production if it's a physical product, making sure your IT systems, your databases, internal tools can handle the new product, new customers. ensuring system integrity, performance, sometimes even finding better ways for teams to work with the new product.
So the internal plumbing needs to be ready.
Yeah.
And for customer support.
Crucial. Establishing clear support tiers. Level 1 for the basic questions, maybe level 2 or 3 for the more technical, complex issues.
Different levels of expertise.
Right. And equipping users to help themselves too. Training materials, knowledge-based articles, online support portals, preparing policies, procedures, maybe setting up automated email or phone responses for common initial queries. It's all about enabling effective use and providing help when needed.
Making sure the whole support structure is built out.
Okay. And then there's manufacturing readiness. This sounds critical, especially if you're making, physical goods.
Oh, absolutely essential. Manufacturing readiness means you can actually make the product in the quantities needed, at the cost targeted, and meeting the quality standards you've set.
What does that involve?
Making sure your process tech is ready, your facilities, your workforce, the tooling, your whole supplier base. Everyone needs to be ready for that shift from development into full production.
Suppliers too, huh?
Definitely. And the source also highlights complying with regulations, especially in fields like pharmaceuticals, where you need really comprehensive quality management systems. It's non-negotiable.
And I saw mention of a formal manufacturing readiness review. What's that about?
That's a key checkpoint. A formal review to make absolutely sure that the final design and the readiness of the manufacturing team, the supply chain, quality assurance that it all meets the requirements for reliable, scalable production.
Sounds important. What happens if you skip parts of that? Big problems later. Costly design changes, rework, maybe even product recalls down the line. It's risky.
But you can't be too slow either, right?
No, that's the other side of the coin. Being overly cautious, delaying the launch too much, that means missed market opportunities, maybe competitors get there first. You lose ground.
Tricky balance.
It is. The key is a well-planned development process overall, with meaningful decision points along the way, leading to a smooth design transfer into manufacturing. Not a last-minute scramble.
Okay, so that covers that whole launch activity group, all the vital pre-launch prep. Now, what happens after the product is out there, the post-launch phase? What's the focus then?
Right, post-launch. Now the focus shifts. It's primarily about, first, generating that initial awareness and keeping the interest going, and second, effectively driving demand and sales.
Okay, awareness and demand. How do you generate awareness initially?
A lot of outreach. Conducting press interviews, talking to key analysts, influencers you briefed earlier, media publications, relevant bloggers, and online resources. Showcasing the product at industry events, trade shows, maybe digital events too, speaking slots, demos.
Getting the word out through others.
Exactly. And if the budget stretches, maybe doing road shows, perhaps highlighting some early customer wins, that can be really impactful. And using social media, digital events continuously to broaden that reach.
So making sure people know it exists and why it's relevant. And then driving demand, converting that awareness into actual interest in sales.
Correct. This usually involves developing a more detailed regional demand generation plan. What activities will you run where?
Tailoring it geographically.
Yes. And creating integrated marketing campaigns, using those key messages we talked about, but maybe tailoring them by customer role or industry segment and thinking about each stage of their buying journey.
Right. Different messages for different people at different times.
Exactly. And the sequence matters too. The right promotion mix. For instance, maybe an email invite to a webinar, then reminders, then a clear call to action during the webinar, maybe followed by a special offer or online promotion with clear next steps to buy.
Adding them through a process.
Yeah. The goal is capture attention, build interest, turn that into desire, and then ultimately drive the action, the sale.
Makes sense. It's like leading them down a path. And I assume this isn't just a set it and forget it kind of thing. You have to watch how it's going.
Oh, absolutely not. Post-launch requires constant monitoring. You need to evaluate how your activities are performing, using real-world feedback, performance data, and be ready to refine things.
Adjusting on the fly.
Pretty much. Taking corrective measures, optimizing your strategies, tightening things up. You need to measure progress with the right indicators so you can spot unforeseen issues or areas for improvement early and respond quickly.
So it's iterative. Action, measure, refine, repeat.
Exactly. A continuous improvement loop.
Okay. So you go through all this pre-launch prep, you execute the launch, you do the post-launch monitoring and refining. How do you know when you're actually done with the launch phase? When can you say, okay, we launched it and move on?
Good question. The source outlines a pretty defined exit process for the launch phase.
Okay. What does that involve?
Basically, Reaching agreement that all the planned deliverables from both the launch and post-launch activity groups have actually been completed successfully.
Checking things off the list.
Right. And there should have been ongoing reviews and refinements at each stage. The project manager, if you have one, often leads a final exit review to confirm all objectives were met.
A final look back.
Yeah. And critically, you need that formal sign-off from executive leadership. That's the green light to officially transition out of the launch phase and into the next one. Often called the deliver phase, which is more about ongoing management and growth.
Got it. So, a formal handover, signifying the initial launch goals are met, and it's time to shift focus to the longer term. Okay, this has been, wow, a really comprehensive look at the product launch phase. Super insightful.
It's a complex beast, isn't it?
Definitely. So try and summarize some key takeaways for everyone listening.
Yeah, I mean, the big picture is that the launch phase is incredibly multifaceted, really high stakes. It demands meticulous planning, deep understanding of your market type.
Right, that market type piece was huge.
Huge. And it needs that highly coordinated collaborative effort across pretty much the whole company. Clear, consistent messaging is non-negotiable. That comprehensive pre-launch readiness across product, marketing, sales, ops, manufacturing, support, it's all essential. You can't skimp there.
Can't skimp. Got it.
And finally, that proactive, adaptive post-launch strategy, generating awareness, driving demand, and constantly monitoring and refining. That's critical for getting beyond just day one and achieving actual success.
So hopefully, for you listening, this gives you a much more practical, in-depth handle on those critical elements that really decide if a launch sinks or swims. We've definitely gone way beyond just scratching the surface here.
I think so. And actually, thinking about our whole discussion, especially that deep dive into understanding your market type, it kind of raises a final thought, doesn't it?
Oh, what's that?
Well, just considering how fast things change today, what kind of unexpected market shifts, disruptions we didn't even talk about, could potentially throw even the most carefully planned launch completely off track.
Yeah. The unknowns.
Right. And maybe how can businesses build in more agility, more ability to anticipate and react to those unforeseen challenges? It really just highlights that dynamic, sometimes unpredictable dance between a product and the market it's trying to serve. Something to think about.